Hello, hello ladies and gentlemen, ChaosWulff here, and welcome back to another one of my videos. Today we are going to be taking a look at this little beauty, the Object 416, one of the two Tier 8 Russian medium tanks. As you can see, there sits the Object 416, which leads from the A44 on to either the Object 430 Mark II version 2 or the T54. And one of the first things you'll notice about this tank when you look at it, apart from the fact that it has a rear mounted turret, is the fact that it is a very low profile machine. Now I'll show you exactly what I mean just now. I'll show you a quick flash between two different tanks. We have the T-34-3 here, the Chinese premium tier 8 medium tank. You can see there that the tank actually goes up quite a ways on the window in the background there. And bear that in mind when I switch over to this tank. Previous tank was up here, this was down here. This is a very low profile machine. Now there are some pros and cons to this tank being such a low profile machine. One of the pros is the fact that it can use a lot more terrain as cover, whereas with other tanks, if a small kind of bump or dip or so would say come up to there on the tank, you'd still have a good shot, at the very least at the top of the turret, or even down here. You'd still be able to completely hit the tank in the turret. But with this one, if it comes up to there, you're going to have such a very small target, if any target at all. So this is a very good ambush tank, because you can, like that, you can hide between a lot more, behind a lot more cover. And in tandem with that, because this tank has a rear-mounted turret, it makes side scripting this tank kind of a nice little tactic to use. I'll go onto that in a bit more detail a bit later. But yeah. Now, first thing we want to look at here on these stats is the hit points. 1200 hit points. Now that is very low for a tier 8 medium, and let's just quickly look on this one. 1300 on this one. 1350 on that one. And this one only has 1200. So, unless I'm completely mistaken, this tank has the lowest amount of hit points of any tier 8 medium tank, which is not really all that surprising, considering that it is a low profile machine. It is not exactly a heavy machine. I mean, my particular loadout has it at 24.5 tons roughly, maxing out at 27 tons. So this is a very light tank. I mean, let's have a look at the T69. 34 tons, well, pretty much 35, give or take. 35 there. So yeah, pretty much 10 tons lighter than those two tier 8s. The engine power is quite nice at 400 horsepower, which gives this tank a really nice horsepower to ton ratio. Let's see what it roughly is here. Specific power is 16.36. That is quite a nice little ratio there. This is not a sluggish machine. This is quite a fast little tank. Its maximum speed here is 50 kilometers an hour, which is not the best, but then again it's not the worst either. But you do notice it a little bit coming off from the A44, whose top speed was 59 kilometers an hour. So you do notice that it doesn't quite have the same top speed, but it does accelerate faster, and it is a lot more manoeuvrable. Because you can see here that the traverse speed is 52 degrees a second, and that is an amazingly fast traverse speed. So with this tank you can and quite often do run rings around enemy tanks. In fact, I've done that more than once, and it is hilarious. And moving on to the army, here we have the Object 416 in Tank Inspector. Right. Well, we'll take a look first of all at the front of this tank. You can see here that the as we said in the garage, the frontal armour is 75mm. But if you're firing flush on, the effective armour is 115. Lower plate is actually 60mm, but again, effective armour is about 116. Side armour is 45. Again, rear 45. Turret armour. Frontally, we've got 110. Side is 75. Rear 45 again. But effective thickness. If you're firing pretty much straight on, front goes from like 154, 164, 150 roughly, 170, and then 160. Going to auto ricochet at the side there. But this is one of the great things about this tank. It has such a rounded turret. It does have a couple of little weak spots right next to the cannon, just either side of the spaced armor, where the effective thickness goes from down to like 120, maybe less. And again, same somewhere on this side, but not quite so much it seems. But yeah, now the gun mantle itself has a little bit of spaced armor. It has 100 in the center. It has it claims to be 110 spaced armor there, but then again, it seems to have an armor void behind it. Well, let's say you were side scraping on this tank. You'd have roughly that. Yeah, there we go. Something a little bit like that. The side armor there, even though it's only 45, it seems to be almost a complete auto bounce zone. Because of the rear mounted turret, you have such a shallow angle on it. But yeah. Now, one of the ways to actually cope with the fairly poor gun depression on this tank is to actually drive it up backwards onto back up a little slope. The problem with that, though, is that the entire upper hull here is only 20mm, as is the top of the turret. So what happens is you basically open yourself up to receiving basically a lot more penetrations if you show the top of your tank. But yeah, we'll just flash up the collision model quickly just so you can see kind of the individual specific armor zones. I mean, the main weak point of the turret is obviously the little cupola. It's not a massive target. In fact, it's fairly small. But accurate players or tanks will be able to hit it quite often. Now back in the garage, we're going to be taking a quick look at the cannons of this beast. First of all, we'll take a quick look at this one, the stock cannon. It's 100mm with 7.5 rounds a minute. 175 average penetration for the AP shells, 235 for the APCR, and 50mm for the HE. The average damage is 250 and 330. The accuracy is not amazing at 0.39, but the aiming time is significantly better than the previous tank. Yeah, it's not a terrible cannon, but it's not amazing either. But it basically makes the grind up to the best cannon on this not so bad. I mean, you can do quite well with this cannon, and I have done quite well with this cannon. But up until the point I got this, I always felt this tank was a little bit lacking, which is not surprising. It was a stock cannon. But as soon as you get the best cannon, it is still 100mm and still has the exact same rounds rate of fire, but you get a jump in penetration of 201 for standard AP, 330 for its heat shells. That's another difference, is in the stock cannon you fire APCR shells, and in the top cannon it actually changes to heat shells. Now, in a way, this is a good thing and it's a bad thing. The good thing is that the actual armor penetration of this heat shell is absolutely phenomenal. It is 330. Now that thing can punch, if fired correctly, it can punch right through the front of a T95 or a T110E3. Two of the heaviest armor, most heavily armored tanks in the game. The downside to this is that heat shells don't get any normalization for when they're fired against angled armor. And for those of you who don't know what normalization is, it's when a shell strike is basically fired off and it hits another tank at not directly on, so it hits at an angle. What happens is the tip of the shell digs in to the into the surface and actually creates a little anchor point, and the rest of the force actually kind of continues swinging, going forwards and outwards at the same time. So it actually swings the shell around a little bit to actually nullify part of the angling. Now, heat shells don't actually get this normalization, because what happens is they actually explode on contact and generate all their force on contact. They also don't like being fired at spaced armor or at tracks, because, as I said, they actually explode on contact, so they generate their force on the actual spaced armor on the actual tracks, and they will be eaten up by the spaced armor or the tracks, so there'll be, again, no damage done. But anyway, moving on from that, so yeah, we said 330 there. Again, the AP have 50mm, but now this is where we have another big jump from the stock cannon to this cannon, is the average damage. We go from 250 to 320, and with the same rate of fire, that means that the DPM of this cannon absolutely jumps. And you can see here the AP has 420. Now the DPM of this cannon is actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is the highest of all the tier 8 mediums. Not counting the T69, because that's an autoloader, and the autoloaders are not about DPM; they're about burst damage. But the DPM on this tank is 2,400 damage per minute. So if you're just sitting there firing the cannon every time it is reloaded, penetrating every time and doing average damage every time, you'll be having 2,400 damage per minute. Dispersion over 100 meters is 0.37, so it is better than the previous cannon of 0.39, but it is still definitely not one of the up there with the German accuracies. This is not the best tank at sniping. Now, one of the things that you don't find out about this tank, it's one of the soft stats. It doesn't actually tell you about this in the game itself, and that's the gun depression. This tank has it doesn't have amazing gun depression. It has a grand total of 3 degrees gun depression. So it's not stellar, but it does have 15 degrees of gun elevation, which is not bad. It's quite a nice little tank, quite a nice little amount there. And yeah. Now the other thing that's a bit of a problem with this tank is its ammo capacity. It only has enough space for 35 shells, and compare that with the 7.5 rounds a minute. That'd be awesome. No, 7-point rounds a minute, and 35 shells. That means you do run a very high risk of running out of ammo in this tank. So you really do need to make sure that every shot counts. Now, with my ammo here, you can see that I take 23 normal AP shells. I take 10 heat shells, just in case I need them. I really try not to use these, but because this tank can come across tier 10s, you really do need something with a little extra kick. And take 2 HE just for artillery, for scouts, and occasionally if I need to try and reset cap. But yeah, now we'll have a quick look as well at the some of the other stats here. You can see that the turret traverse is 40 degrees a second. Now there's one thing I've got to tell you about this turret before we go any further. It's not a full 360 degree turning turret. It's only rotates to about 72 degrees either side, so it goes out to about there and out to about there, which can be a little bit problematic when you're trying to run rings around enemy tanks. Usually I like to just auto aim and drive around the tank so I can concentrate on driving. Because if you're like me, I can't really concentrate on driving and aiming at the same time. So I like to let auto aim take control of that. The only thing is I have to concentrate where my reticle is on the enemy tank. I don't aim it myself whilst I'm driving around circles, but I have to pay attention as to where it is. Because if you're driving past and you're just holding down on the fire trigger, you may end up driving a little bit too far one way and just missing the target. So you have to be very careful with that. It also means that you can't drive out backwards from a position to hide as much of your body as possible. But what it does do is it means that you can side scrape about this angle and point your cannon directly at the enemy, which means that even though the side armor isn't amazing, you can bounce there, and you'll quite possibly bounce off the turret unless they really know where to hit you. These bounces are not guaranteed because the effective armor is not that amazing. It is good, but it's not amazing. But yeah, the view range on this tank is actually one of the worst for its tier in the mediums. It's 380 meters view range, which is absolutely under par when it comes to the tier 8 mediums. But then again, it follows the same with most of the other Russian tanks. Signal range, top radio is 760, I believe that's top radio at least. Yeah, tier 10 top radio, yes. The other one is 730, or stock radio 525, which is absolutely appalling. So you definitely need a radio upgrade on this thing. But now we'll have a quick look at equipment and what I recommend. 100% vertical stabilizer. You are going to be driving this thing, firing this thing on the move, so you need vertical stabilizers. It's got a fairly good aim time of 2.3 seconds, so I don't really feel that the enhanced gun lane drive is really necessary. So instead, I like to take a medium caliber tank gun rammer and vents, as I pretty much have vents on almost all my other tanks. There's only a few that I don't actually take vents on. And standard consumables there. Apart from, I've kind of become addicted to these automatic fire extinguishers now. Anyway, on to crew skills. I think it's absolutely necessary, 100%, that you have Sixth Sense on this tank. On any tank, really, but definitely on mediums, lights, and TDs and so on. Heavy tanks, it's like, yeah, it's your job to get shot at. You have to be T. But Gunner, I recommend Snapshot, because that will work in tandem with the vertical stabilizer, and it will stack with the effect will stack. Driver, I've gone for clutch braking just because I want to have the edge if I am in close quarters combat with other tanks. I want to be able to have that little bit of extra manoeuvrability around them. Another one you could go for would be smooth ride, which again would work in tandem with the vertical stabilizers. But I haven't gone for that one yet. I've basically jumped straight to doing camouflage on all my crew because I want this thing to be a stealth tank. And on the on my loader, I have safe stowage because one of the problems with this tank is it gets ammo racked a lot. The ammo rack is actually situated on the entire of the back of the hull of this tank. So if you get any shots at this tank, HE whatever, put it through the lower part of this tank at the back if you can, and 9 times out of 10 you'll ammo rack this thing. It gets ammo racked left, right, and centre. On the flip side, the entire front of the tank is actually the engine. So any penetrations in the front, anywhere pretty much, run the risk of damaging the engine in this tank. The amount of times I've been hit and I had my engine damaged, I fixed the engine, only to have the next shot take the engine out again, is absolutely frustrating. But yeah, I think we've actually reached the point, the end of what we can actually look at, what we can actually see from this tank in the garage. So let's move on to some replay. And here we are on the Siegfried line on a standard battle. The reason I wanted to show you this specific replay is because, as you can see here, I am actually still using the stock cannon, and to show you that it's still a viable cannon. So it does make the grind up to the best cannon is not quite so painful. But as you can see, we're here on the Siegfried line, and we currently have a 48% chance to win. The enemy team has some the two teams are not that different. The enemy have got a few more oranges, but they have got a purple platoon, a Tiger 2, and a Rim Job. The best players in our team are myself and my clanmate, my platoon mate Sanguine. So we'll start this off.
Let's go!
And first of all, we decide to move around the outside, because around the outside we can actually we can use the low profile of this tank behind all the dips in the terrain. So we can excuse me. So we can actually we can hide the tank and we can surprise the enemies and just take advantage of this tank to its fullest on the outside. Now I'm waiting around on the outside because Sanguine did spawn at the opposite spawn point, and I'm just waiting for him to come around to me. But now he's here. We are going to move off just now. You can see that this tank, even though it doesn't actually it has only one engine. You never need to upgrade the engine on this. Even though it doesn't have any engine upgrades, it does accelerate up to its top speed, fully geared and fully loaded, really well. But we're moving out, moving in a pack, not seeing anything so far. So you can see here that even along the flats we're getting up to top speed quite quickly. Even on the rough ground we're getting to a good speed. There we go, 50 kilometers an hour top speed. But then we move uphill and the speed does drop off a little bit, but that's not really surprising. It's only a light thing, but it is rough ground as well. Here we go. We get some shots. We get some shots in, or at least Sanguine does. I can't see the tank that he's firing at. But there we go. There it is. I accidentally lead it a little bit too far, thinking that he wasn't going to stop, but he did, and I missed. But yeah, you can see that the aim time on this tank, on this cannon, it does aim really fast. I'll take a speculative shot towards where the rim job was last spotted. Don't know if I hit him or not. But now we decide it's time to move on around. Sangui looking into town, seeing if he gets some shots. Well, as you can see again, the top speed of this tank is more than adequate, and it does move. It is very manoeuvrable. But you can see here, I spot the AMX M4. I pay no attention to the reticle now. There is actually a bug in my thing. I go over, take a shot at him, back off. He doesn't get any return fire. Basically release the target. Sangui moves up, takes some shots, as does our SU-100Y.
Permission to engage.
Lock him again, missed that shot. And now I use the bunker as cover. And because I'm such low profile, I can go pretty much right to the edge, move back, get just enough I need for a shot, and take it. And now the enemy know we're here, so we need to shift. As you can see, off rough ground, slightly uphill, still moving quite quick. As you can see, this tank traverses quite well. The turret traverse is really fast. We are very mobile tanks. Let's speed this up a little bit again. Now, this is where there's a bit of a problem. I have to crest these little bumps in order to actually get shots over. But oh, been spotted. What is it? Oh crap! It's the Tiger II, the enemy's best player.
Ready to fire.
So again, auto locking. Missed the first one because I'm going over a bump. It's not exactly surprising, but joust back and forth. Sangui takes a shot in. I wait until I'm up sideways to fire off, because as you can see the turret doesn't go all the way sideways. That's the maximum turret rotation. Reload, take another shot, take a hit. Damage, my engine gets damaged. Fix that. Go around, take another shot. Well, that's a common occurrence in this tank. You will have your engine taken out if they hit you anywhere front of the turret. So you move into town. As you can see, driving almost top speed, just turning around the corners quite easily. Spot the AT, take a shot, take a hit, take a shot. I don't even hit him, I just miss him because you can see that's the limitation of the turret. And also there's penetration issues of the lower cannon. It's only 175 mils of penetration. If I'd have loaded a gold round, perhaps I would have got through him, but and again I didn't even hit him. But now we spot the KV-4, move off towards him. And this is,
we didn't even scratch them.
Yeah, if this had been a gold round, I'd have probably hit him, gotten the kill. But as it is, Sangui comes up behind him and takes a shot and kills him. And now all we have left is the enemy AT-15. But despite my best efforts, I don't get anywhere near him before the rim job takes him out. So yeah, game over. But as you can see, the Object 416 has very good manoeuvrability. But the main thing of this replay was to showcase the stock cannon. I mean, I did 1,157 damage in this game. That's XVM recorded here, and the average damage of this tank is only 1,100. But that's the average damage with with all players playing with Top Gun, everything. So this is slightly above par. But this was slightly bad, some bad calls on my part, and some slight bits of bad luck. The first miss on the Tiger II, the miss on the AT-15, the ding on the side of the KV-4. The latter there was probably my own fault. If I'd have loaded a premium shell, I'd have definitely gone through. But I probably shouldn't. My possible problem is the fact that I rely a lot on auto aim. But yeah, let's have a look at at another replay now. This time we are on Ruinberg. We are in an encounter battle, and we have a 58% chance to win. Me and Sang, we have moved up into the little town. And you can see here I've taken on a nice little side scraping position. As I said before, because of the rear mounted turret, it does give you more option to side scrape. But at this point we don't have anything to actually fire at. As you can see, we have at this point we haven't really noticed this, but our team have decided to. A lot of us have decided to come over to the little town. Me and Sang, we come this way because we're in mediums. It's our job to come this way to begin with, at the very least. But there, I've got nothing to fire at, so I decided to move across to the other side. Try and get some shots over. But I can't see anything. There's that Cromwell's pulled out in the way, so I can't see anything anyway. And now I've pulled back, and I'm actually behind the wall. So this is the problem of actually driving around in sniper mode. I do not recommend it. It was just me being a bit of an idiot and not realising what I was doing. So I move out, see the T-29, try and get a shot over at him. Although I don't realise him yet, but I've been spotted. I take a hit from him. Thankfully, he's using a stock cannon, so I don't take much damage. But at this point, I decide, right, we're too heavily represented in this town. We need to get into the city, towards Cap, and actually do something. Because we've only got 3 tanks now that can actually do anything right now. So I rush over. You can see that the speed and manoeuvrability of this tank actually allows me to, as with most mediums, just leave one flank, rush straight across to another flank where I'm needed. I'll speed this up a little bit. There we go. Now the idea here is that there was a VK4502A and there's also a VK3601H in the side street. And he rushes out, not paying attention at me, so I just plant one right in the back of his, around his back. Move around, take another shot at him, back off around the corner before he can get his gun to bear on me.
Target unlocked.
Move up again, see that he's focusing somewhere else, so come out again, shoot at him and ammo rack him, so that was quite nice. Then back off so Sang we can rush around, distract this VK3601H. D takes 2 shots, I take 1 and he's gone. Lock on this target, move around, fire, and then again Sang we takes another shot. But at this point, we're just rolling around, clearing up using auto aim. It's one of the great things about these is because we can use the manoeuvrability to just run rings around tanks. I mean, lock on, fire on this Tiger 1, drive up. I see his turrets coming around. I take a hit. I turn around, take another shot at him.
Let's find another target.
You can see here that the turret doesn't rotate all the way around. Take a couple of hits there. Take a shot at the IS-3.
Target acquired. One of our tracks is damaged.
There we go. Taking another shot on the Tiger 1. Back off, move around. Take another hit from him.
Target acquired.
Basically, at this point, I'm deciding to try and use the IS-3. Was trying to use the IS-3 as cover, but it didn't really work. He takes a hit. I'm thinking, come on, quick! No, damn it! I turned too far.
This vehicle has had it.
And the problem there was that I backed off. I moved forward too far, and my turret wouldn't actually it was at its maximum rotational point. So I drove too far forward and actually couldn't. I wasn't actually aiming at the tank. Had I actually been a little bit further back and taken that last shot, I'd have killed him, and not died, obviously, because it was the last enemy. But this wasn't exactly a hard match. This was just we steamrolled him. Now I think you've already kind of worked out what I think about this tank. I love this tank. It's fast. It's agile. It has a great cannon. It has the highest DPM of any tier 8 medium tank. It is a small target. It's hard to hit, and it has really good turret armor. Very few visible weak spots from the turret at the front. Only the little cupola. Downsides: any penetrations in the front are going to a lot of the time damage your engine. Any penetrations in the back or the sides are probably going to take out your ammo rack. It's got tracks aren't that big, but you do get tracked a little bit in this thing, but that's not a massive issue. The main concern is the lack of a full 360-degree turret traverse. But with careful play, that's not a massive issue. I mean, the replays I've shown you when I was still learning this, it was like the first 30-40 matches I'd played in this thing. I was still trying to get used to it. But yeah, no, I highly recommend this tank. It's high DPM, but it is fragile. Doesn't have amazing armor. It doesn't have the best armor, especially on the body. The turret can bounce shots. The frontal hull can bounce. The side of the hull can bounce, if angled correctly. But that is nowhere near a guarantee. But this is a really fast flanker. If you play it as such, as a flanker, as an ambusher, you'll do really well in this tank. I mean, the replays you've seen, I've not played this tank to its absolute fullest. But there are many players out there that will be able to play this a lot better than me. And I do highly recommend this tank. It is so much fun to drive, even with the minor limitations of the turret traverse and the slight lack of gun depression. It is still fun to drive, and I love this tank. I'm going to keep this tank, especially because it is one of the tanks that I recommended for team battles. And it's hard not to see why with its extremely high DPM. But I'm not going to go into that myself, because Wargaming themselves have covered this. So I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please do consider rating the video and possibly subscribing to my channel for further content. So thank you very much, and I will catch you around.